So what do you really value? That's the question of the day, and that's the title of today's Daily Dose devotion. What do you really value? Well, back in the day before being called into full-time ministry, and yes, I did have a life and a couple careers before being called into being a pastor. Well, back in the day, I would buy houses out of foreclosure. I'd fix them and then I'd sell them. And some of the homes I would buy at the auction that was held twice a week on the county courthouse steps in downtown Phoenix. But other times I was able to help homeowners before they lost their homes to foreclosure. Now, in those cases, I would often need to meet them at their house before we closed the deal. And when I was there, I would notice a common thread. You know, it was normal, it was usual for folks who were losing their homes to have a brand new big screen, top of the line TV in their living room. I mean, I keep seeing it time and time again, and it would grab my attention, it would baffle me. I was like, wow, these TVs were way nicer than any TV I'd ever had or even thought about buying, and how could they afford them? Why had they dropped so much money into this expensive TV while at the same time they were losing their home? Now, before I go any further, let me be very clear. Every situation has a story. And often the circumstances that people were going through were tough, they were out of their control, and even heartbreaking. They needed prayer. But still, the big screen TV thing baffled me and made me wonder, why would they be willing to invest so much money into this, and presumably also invest so much time as well into these big TVs? Well, in James chapter 2, verse 18, Scripture says this. Scripture says, show me your faith without deeds, and I will show you my faith by my deeds. And essentially, James is saying that his faith, what he values, what he has invested his life into, will be easily identified by what he does, by how he spends his time, and yeah, I imagine how he invests his life and his money as well. Look, we show that we value something and that something's really important to us when we're willing to invest in it, when we're willing to give our hard-earned money for it. Let me see your bank statement. I'm not saying that for real, but seriously, let me see your bank statement. Let me see how you spend your money, and I'll show you what you value. That's just true. Jesus said it this way in his Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 6:21. He said, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Well, we know that, the chicken, right? But anyway, rhetorical question, what comes first, chicken or egg? Does what we invest in reveal what we value? Or does what we invest in help us shape our values? I believe it's both and. How we spend our money reveals what we value most, but we can also turn it around and we can also cause our values to change by changing what we invest in. Do you want your heart to change? Then change what you're investing in. Change your investment strategy. Change where you're spending your money, your time. Invest in the kingdom, and I believe your heart will follow. Invest in the work of the Lord, and I believe your heart will turn also. Invest in others, and I believe your heart will change. Now let me go back to the Sermon on the Mount. Sermon on the Mount, let's go to verse 19. Check this out. This is in Matthew 6:19. Jesus said, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures where? In heaven. Not on this earth, but in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. And again, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Matthew 6:19 through 21. Now, I want to dive deeper at this time, though. We're not done yet this morning. We're not done today. Let's dive deeper, because here's the reality. Something also has value because we desire it. We want it. Our minds are consumed with those things which we value. Spending the limited resource of time on something creates value. Story of the Good Samaritan reveals the value system of those who walked by the dying man on the road, right? Some were just too busy, too consumed with their life to help, too busy. Their value system of how they were going to spend their time did not allow for them to stop and help a man who was dying by the side of the road. But the Samaritan, that Good Samaritan, he was willing to stop what he was doing and invest the rest of his day helping that one person in need. I think of those first disciples who were willing to leave everything else behind and spend their time, their days, their weeks, and even their years with Jesus. Their value system, what they valued, was played out in how they were willing to spend their time. In his letter to the Ephesians, Paul cautioned the saints, and he said this, he said, "Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise." How do you be wise? By making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil. That's Ephesians 5, 15 and 16. So here's what we discover. Living wisely, investing wisely, involves using our time carefully. Knowing that the harvest is great, the workers are few, as it says in Luke 10:2, and that the time is rapidly escaping. All of that should help us make better use of our time to invest it where it really matters, things that last for eternity. C.S. Lewis, he understood this value of time, where to invest it. And this is what he wrote. He said, "If you read history, you will find that the Christians who did the most for the present were just those who thought most of the next." You've heard the phrase, time is money. I believe that time is much more actually valuable than money. Anyway, I encourage you to do something. I encourage you to open up your calendar. Take a look at how you're spending your time. Those 168 hours you have available every week. That's what I said. You have 168 hours available. Every one of us does every single week. Take a look at how you're spending those hours. And when you look at those, you're going to know, because those hours, that calendar is going to show you what you really value. So again, I ask, what do you value? Well, what are you investing in? Where are you spending your time and your treasure? And again, I believe it's a worthwhile exercise to do an inventory of your life. And if you're looking for the return on investment of a lifetime, then might I suggest investing in those things that matter for all eternity? Invest like Jesus. Invest like Jesus. In this Sermon on the Mount, let's get one more teaching from Jesus from this Sermon on the Mount. He says this, he says, "But seek first His kingdom, God's kingdom, and His righteousness. And all these things, all the other stuff in life will be given to you as well." You know, there's a way that we can invest that's right. There's a way that we can invest that's going to bring heavenly blessing, heavenly results, eternal rewards and returns. So I want to encourage you, have an amazing day and happy investing. God bless.